The chapter to be dealt is from the zoology, breathing and exchange of gases. So what are the main basic things that are going to be dealt with this unit called as breathing and exchange of gases? The topic would have dealt with what exactly is the meaning of breathing and how does it differ from the word called as respiration. Let me tell you what is the respiration over here. You would have looked at respiration would be the process of oxidation. Oxidation of what means? Oxidation of certain food materials. Whatever nutrients we have been consumed, oxidation of structures, what you call nutrients. This is a process of catabolism, right? By utilizing oxygen, a catabolic process, oxidation process, that is what indicating utilizing oxygen, we are releasing carbon dioxide and we are going to produce something called as energy, which is in terms of ATP. This is what the word called as respiration or cellular respiration means to be. Oxidation of food process, nutrients, which is a catabolic process, and that is going to take oxygen. It is in the mitochondria and I release carbon dioxide and enormous amount of ATP is going to be generated, would be called as respiration. So, could you notice what is the meaning of breathing then? Breathing in terms of respiration, it is taking in of air from atmosphere to inside the body and again giving out the air which is filled with carbon dioxide outside the body. If case of this, which are the different respiratory organs, breathing organs, which are found in different sorts of groups of organisms of my kingdom Animalia? Does respiratory organs function in different members of Animalia? Yes. If you could start from the very beginning, this could be process of something called as diffusion, a process of simple diffusion, exchange of O2 and CO2. O2 is being taken into the body and from the body release of something called as CO2 by simple process of diffusion could be taken as an example of members belonging to lower groups. So which would be these lower groups of members which are going to be under the process of simple form of diffusion? Means it could be members of sponges or porifera, it could be members of coelenterata, and it could be members of what you call flatworms. So they don't have any special breathing devices, they does by the general body surface. So I want to conclude the respiratory organ is absent, but general body surface is responsible for the process of breathing in those creatures. Next, number 2, it could be skin respiration, which is also called as cutaneous respiration. Skin respiration or cutaneous respiration is seen in the members of frogs or amphibians. You could use the word earthworms also. It could be members called as leeches. These are under the process of simple diffusion through their skin, the process of exchange of O2 and CO2. Next, the third one comes as tracheal tubes. The tracheal tube respiration would be seen in the members of arthropods. Tracheal tubes are there which are members of arthropods. They include members called as insects. They could be millipedes, centipedes, etc. They respire through tracheal tubes. Number 4, the other group of members will follow gill respiration. I call this gill respiration even as a bronchial respiration. Gill respiration or bronchial respiration could be seen in the members of aquatic creatures. They could be aquatic insects or arthropods, aquatic mollusca, fishes, etc. And the last type of respiratory organ which is a point of interest is the fifth one, which is known as pulmonary respiration. Pulmonary respiration, also known as lung respiration. So, lung respiration and pulmonary respiration, who could have been practiced? Examples we have almost all members of vertebrates, which includes amphibians, reptiles, and what do you call mammals. So, this was a brief introduction to the chapter connected to different respiratory organs found in different groups of members of kingdom Animalia. Starting from the first, it was the general body surface, simple diffusion, skin or moist skin or cutaneous respiration with frogs and earthworms. Tracheal tubes are there in the members of arthropods. Gills are there in aquatic members, and lung respiration, what do you call pulmonary respiration, in the members of vertebrates. If so, now comes, give a brief account on human respiratory system. So, how does this human respiratory system works? What are the different anatomical features and physiology going on in human respiratory system? Your human respiratory system is been grouped under two headings. I call the first one as conducting zone, and the second one will be the respiratory zone. Entire system of the respiration would have been broadly grouped into two, the conducting as well as the respiratory. So, what shall be this conducting zone means? All that includes of bringing the atmospheric air, all those systems which include bringing the atmospheric air into the lung, atmospheric air into the structure called as lung, those all organs come under conducting zone. In the other case, respiratory zone, it is just involved in exchange of gases. That part of the respiratory system will be called as respiratory zone. You do not do the job of exchange of gases. You will take the oxygen from the outside mixture of gases into the system. Exchanging part is of respiratory zone, bringing the air is of conducting zone. So then, which things come under this conducting zone? You should start from the very first point as such, nostrils or nose. Further opens into nasal chamber from the outer nostrils through your nose, nasal chamber. After this, you have to reach the organ called as pharynx. From the pharynx, the next part of the respiratory system, larynx. After the larynx, we are going to see the structure called as bronchi. So, bronchi is highly branched process. So, if you could mention primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi. Still, it further continues. After bronchi, I have to go with the last terminal bronchioles. Initial bronchiole, terminal bronchiole. So, these entire organs come under this structure called as conducting zone. Then which is left out in your respiratory zone then? Other than this, what comes next? Those last two structures will be simply taken as like this. So, these left out last parts will be this terminal bronchiole. From the terminal bronchiole, yes, so these will be the alveolar ducts, including the structures individual called as alveoli. So, alveolar ducts and alveolus, these are the two things which are involved in the process of exchange of gases. Till this terminal bronchioles, we are coming under the conducting zone. So, now comes the details of each of these structures, the conducting zone as well as respiratory zone. Let me justify by taking one simple diagram. So, what is the function of nostril, nasal chamber, pharynx, larynx, bronchi, and the next part called as bronchioles. So a brief note on this conducting zone and function of this conducting zone. Could take a simple diagrammatic view. The nostril opening into nasal chamber, the structure called as tongue, start with this larynx, opening of trachea, so this goes your food pipe, so this will be our gullet, this is a mouth system, nostril system. Could represent this conducting zone into this. We'll start with the organ called as nasal chamber. So, function of nasal chamber. You are lined with the columnar. You are made up of this columnar epithelium, which is ciliated. And note that you contain goblet cells. You contain goblet cells. Columnar epithelium, ciliated columnar epithelium having goblet cells which are going to produce mucus. They are going to secrete mucus in our nasal chamber. So the main part of this would be like this. What is the function of this important structure called as nasal chamber? So these nasal chamber could do the following functions. A, because you said you have cilia, because you said that you have a cilia there, you are going to trap the dust particles. Correct, the foreign particles will be trapped. Second thing, because there is a mucus, you do the job of humidifying the air. Whatever the air is going into the nose, it gets humidified, moistens the air. You could tell it moistens the air. Correct. Third essential process, this nasal chamber raises the air to the body temperature. To the body temperature. It raises the air to the body temperature, and at last it finally does the job of what? Filtration of the air, filtration of the particles. Filtration of the particles. Because of the help of this mucus, the dust and other things will be trapped. The mucus, because of its rich blood capillaries surrounding, humidification is also going to occur. The air will be raised to your body temperature, and last, filtration of the particles are going to occur. So this is the function of your nasal cavity. So now, through these nostrils, when air is passing out into nasal cavity, because of the following functions being said, the question would arise, do you have any other neural control on this part? Yes, very essential to tell. We have neural control on this part, that is, in this nasal chamber, we have a olfactory epithelium. We have structures called as olfactory epithelium. Olfactory epithelium will grasp these particles of chemicals and take it into the structure called as olfactory lobes. Olfactory lobes. From the olfactory lobes, the nerve system are connected to cerebrum part of your brain. From olfactory epithelium cells to the olfactory lobes, olfactory tract, they are taken for grasping the smell to the structure called as cerebrum. So this would be most reliable function of your structure called as nasal chamber. Now quickly getting down into the next part, this could be said as the structure called as pharynx. After your nasal cavity, the next part is the pharynx. So what the function of this pharynx means? Upper part of the pharynx, I call you as nasopharynx. Lower part of the pharynx, above your tongue where the food is going to enter, I call this as oropharynx. Very much below where your voice box is present, larynx, I could call this as laryngopharynx. So pharynx is an enlarged region which is a very much common passage. So I would like to write pharynx as what means? pharynx is to be read as, it's just a common passage. It's a common passage for the what? For receiving of both air as well as food. Common passage for taking in air as well as the food. Coming on to next part. Now, the lower end of this pharynx, where the structure is being noticed, is said to be what? Larynx. So comment on the larynx is this. This is a cartilaginous structure, and its covering or upper region, which is called as glottis, the opening is called as glottis, is covered by a flap-like structure called as epiglottis, which prevents the entry of the food into this windpipe. I don't want the food to go into this windpipe, so larynx has an opening called glottis covered by epiglottis. And to be known that in this larynx I have vocal cords. So vibration of air through this produces sound. So larynx region, which is having the vocal cords, the vibration could produce the sound durations. Next, there is a cartilage in this larynx called as thyroid cartilage. This swelling of this thyroid cartilage could show an enormous feature of what? A swelling in the part of the throat region in males. So this swelling of this larynx region could be called as Adam's apple. It is prominent feature only in the males. Because of this thyroid cartilage, the swelling occurs in the throat region only in the males. We call its structure as Adam's apple. So next part. After this, trachea. Trachea further bifurcates into structure called as bronchi. Right? And this entire trachea is supported by C-shaped structures called as hyaline cartilage. C-shaped structures by hyaline cartilage. Trachea gets a support, and trachea divides into left and right bronchi, where means at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra. In the body vertebral column, fifth thoracic vertebra gets bifurcated into left and right bronchi at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra. So these are going to prevent the entire respiratory system from collapsing. So hyaline cartilage further gives into primary would further into secondary bronchi further into tertiary bronchi. From them I am going to get bronchioles, and these bronchioles will enormously have this alveolar ducts, and this structure comprises what? This structure comprises a unit which is supposed to be called as lung system. Correct? So then, what exactly is the lung? So lung would be a branched network of bronchi plus what is shown here, bronchioles plus alveolus. So kindly to be noticed, when trachea bifurcates, entire thing, bronchi primary, bronchi secondary, bronchi tertiary, bronchioles, initial bronchioles, everyone is supported by incomplete C-shaped ribs to prevent the lungs from collapsing. Only the last part, which is terminal bronchiole and alveoli, do not have this hyaline cartilage. Then what is a lung? Lung is nothing but network of. Lung is nothing but a network of bronchi, bronchiole as well as alveolus. Note that this entire unit called as lung is supported by or covered by two membranes. These two membranes are called as pleura. Pleural membranes cover your lung. Outer pleural membrane is facing to the thoracic body, while inner pleural membrane is facing to the lung surface. Outer thoracic and inner to the lung surface. You could ask, number of alveoli present in the lungs means a summation of both. I could tell lung comprises around 750 million structures called as alveolus. So left lung is smaller, comparing right lung will be larger. You have 2 lobes and you will be having 3 lobes, just an information. So left will be smaller, right will be larger, and you have 3 lobes to be divided. So now straight away coming to the next part, very much essential, mechanism of breathing. Mechanism of breathing. So how does breathing occurs? In humans, how do you breathe? Breathing is a 2-step process. Of course, taking in of air, inspiration. Giving out of air is called as expiration. So what are things needed in your anatomy for this inspiration and expiration? What are the organs that are going to function? A few minutes before lung was written here. Now coming to that part, the first thing you would have noticed that below this structure called as lung, there is a structure known as diaphragm. The structure known to be as diaphragm. We will take those structure which is involved in breathing is diaphragm, which is also known as phrenic muscle, which is also known as radial muscle structure. Next, second most essential thing, when your lungs are being surrounded by the structures, what to be noticed? Lungs are surrounded by the structures known as ribs, called as ribs. Ribs cover up your lungs. When ribs completely cover up your lungs, between the ribs there are muscles. I call this as external and internal intercostal muscles. Internal and external intercostal muscles, where are they found means they are found between the ribs. So diaphragm muscles, muscles of your ribs, these both will control the process of taking in of air, giving out of air. So how is this physiology going to occur? So we will start the process called as inspiration. If we could take the process of inspiration, what is going to occur in this inspiration means air is drawn into the lung. Air is drawn into the lungs. So how does air comes into the lung? This is an active process. This is very much active process. How does it occur? It because of the first process called as contraction. Muscles will contract. Which muscles will contract? Just now being said, the muscles of diaphragm will contract. When muscles of the diaphragm will contract, the diaphragm, which is now dome shape, will become flattened. So look at the diagram. The diaphragm muscles will now become flattened. Because of contraction of this diaphragm muscles, the dome shaped diaphragm is now flattened. Because of this, the volume of this lung or lung capacity will increase. The volume of the lung will increase anterior-posteriorly. Anterior-posterior. Because of contraction, anterior-posterior wise, the lung region has been increased. So just a diagrammatic view like this to tell anterior-posterior axis, volume of the lung is increased. Correct? Supported by ribs. Next, Contraction of next group of muscles which are between the ribs. Which one? External intercostal muscles. External intercostal. External intercostal muscles. When external intercostal muscles of your rib will undergo contraction, this raises the volume of your lung dorsoventrally. Dorsoventrally. See, anterior posteriorly, dorsoventrally. Thus, what has occurred? Space in the lung is more, pressure in the lung is less. So, in the lung, volume is more, the pressure in the lung is dropped. Thus, what happens? Air from the atmosphere moves into the lungs. Yes. Air from the atmosphere moves into the lungs. Then how could be the next process called as expiration? In the expiration, opposite to inspiration, air is not drawn into the lung, taken out of the lung, expelled out. Air is expelled out of the lung. This is passive process. This is passive process. How does expiration occurs? Now I could not do the job of contraction. I should do the job of relaxation of these muscles. Relaxation of the diaphragm muscles. Relaxation of the external intercostal muscles. But one muscle is going to contract, which is, that means, internal intercostal muscles. You have to see that only internal intercostal muscles is going to contract. Contraction process of this. Relaxation of the rib muscles. Relaxation of the diaphragm muscles. So what has occurred? What has occurred? The picturistic view comes opposite. So the flattened diaphragm now once again become dome shape. This volume of the lung, which was increased anterior posteriorly, dorsoventrally, has now been pushed downwards. Has now been pushed downwards. Yes, it's been pushed downwards. Correct? So it has once again become a dome shaped. Flat diaphragm becomes dome shaped. The space in the lung is now congested. Pressure is increased. So writing opposite to that, writing opposite to this, volume in the lung now, because of contractions of intercostal muscles, relaxation of diaphragm and external muscles of ribs, volume in the lung is decreased and pressure in the lung is increased. So this is opposite process. Pressure is built up in the lung because volume is low in the lung. So now air is forced to be expelled out of the lung. Inspiration, expiration process. Active as well as passive process. Now question arises, how many times do I breathe per minute? How many times do we breathe per minute? So that could be an average adult could breathe 12 to 16 times per minute. Can we record the rate of this breathing for clinical analysis? Yes, it can be done by an instrument called as spirometer, or can also be called as respirometer. Spirometer or respirometer. Now, lung is in such a place which is anatomically an airtight chamber. Lung is situated in such a airtight chamber. How come you say that lung is an anatomically airtight chamber? Because lung is dorsally protected by vertebral column. Lung is ventrally protected by structure called as sternum, the breastbone. Lung on your lateral sides, of the body, lung is protected by ribs. Last, on the lower side of the body, on the lower part of your lung is protected by structure called as diaphragm. So whatever changes occur in this thoracic chamber will be definitely reflected on these lungs. Whatever changes occur in this physiological thoracic region will be reflected in the lungs. So dorsally, ventrally, laterally and lower regions, lungs is completely protected in an anatomically tight space. So on an average, I breathe in 12 to 16 times per minute. So by spirometer or respirometer, I am able to analyze how much is being occurred. In clinical analysis, let me keep in the structure. Very quick view on something called as pulmonary volume and pulmonary capacities. Very essential part from the exam point of view, pulmonary volumes and capacities. Tidal volume, which we call it as TV, amount of air taken into the lung during the process of normal breathing. That could be 500 ml. Inspiration and expiration, 500 ml is it going to be. Because you said 12 to 16 times per minute, I will be getting around 6,000 to 8,000 ml per minute. Fine. Next, inspiratory reserve volume. Amount of air taken into the lungs by forceful inspiration. Amount of air drawn into the lungs by forceful inspiration. How much can we take it? That is because of forceful inspiration, 2,500 to 3,000 ml. Looking at your pulmonary volumes, expiratory reserve volume. Amount of air expelled out of the lung forcefully. Expelling out of the lung this air forcefully, expiratory reserve volume will be 1000 to 1100 ml. That's what I can leave it forcefully or tidal volume. Last, residual volume. Even after your forceful expiration, how much of the air is left out in the lung? Even after your forceful expiration, what is left out? Residual volume. That will be 1100 to 1200 ml. Very essential for our point of exam connected to clinical analysis of these respiratory capacities and volumes. Now these were all respiratory volumes. When I add 2 or 3, when I add 2 or 3, I am going to get capacities. If I add this, I am going to get capacities. Could you just visualize yourself? So next, start with the pulmonary capacities. Inspiratory capacity. When I add tidal volume with inspiratory reserve volume, I am going to get inspiratory capacity. Tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. Summation, you could do this. 500 plus 2500 to 3000 ml. On adding this, I am going to get IC. Next, expiratory capacity. I am going to summate these two things, the first and the third one. Tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. When I combine these two, the volumes are written, you are going to get your answer respectively. Next, residual capacity. After a normal expiration, how much of air is remained in your lung? For this, I am going to add these two things with the third and the fourth one. Expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume. I am going to get my residual capacity. The first two, first and the third and the fourth. Now comes, what is your vital capacity of the lung? Amount of air which is accommodated in my lung after a normal inspiration. That could be summation of the three volumes, 1, 2 and 3. Tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume plus Expirator reserve volume. Could do, add for yourself, you will get the answers. Last, total lung capacity. After forced expiration, the entire amount of air which is taken in my lung accommodation, after a forceful expiration, whatever air is drawn into my lung could be called as total lung capacity, for which you can do vital capacity plus residual volume is also the answer, or else combining all the four things is also the answer, that is tidal volume plus inspirator reserve volume plus expirator reserve volume plus residual volume. That makes completion of thermodynamics of the lungs. Just remember the four volumes, you will get the capacities. IC, inspirator capacity, expirator capacity, residual capacity, vital capacity, as well as total lung capacity. A quick next part. What factors affect the process of respiration? What factors affect the process of respiration? Factors affecting this diffusion of gases. Very essential to be noticed. One is solubility of the gases. Second thing is pressure gradient or concentration gradient. Pressure gradient, concentration gradient. Thirdness is thickness of this respiratory membrane. Thickness of your respiratory membrane are the three essential factors which disturb the process of diffusion of gases. So where does this diffusion of gases occur? Could take a broad picture. Diffusion of gases occur between three layers. I could call this epithelium of alveolus. Correct? So this is simple squamous epithelial tissue. This is an alveolus. Epithelium tissue of alveolus. The first one. Second one. The blood capillary. This is a blood capillary. Should know that in the lungs, my alveolus are surrounded by enormous blood capillaries. Again, single lining of simple squamous epithelium only. Both are squamous epithelial tissue. Correct? This layer is called endothelium. Note that in this blood capillaries, I have my RBCs moving. Red blood corpuscles. Between these two, the space, the third layer, which is called as basement layer. This is not even a millimeter, or it could be less than 1 millimeter gap of space. So when oxygen enters your lung, that oxygen enters or passes through this first layer, which is called as alveolar epithelium, then reaching this basement layer or space in between, crossing this endothelium blood vessels, ultimately the blood is taken into this RBC. So RBCs carry both O2 and CO2, but not both together. RBC should carry either O2 or CO2, but not both together. So this is under the control of these three processes: solubility of the gases, pressure gradient, and thickness of this membrane. Very essential. Who is more soluble compared to oxygen and carbon dioxide? Solubility of the gases, very essential. Carbon dioxide is more soluble, around 20 to 25 times than the oxygen in the blood. More than this, carbon monoxide, highly soluble than the oxygen, which is around 200 to 250 times more soluble than this carbon dioxide or oxygen. highly soluble, irreversible reaction which could result in the death 200 to 250 times. Now comes, what is this partial pressures and how does transportation of gases occur? Very essential part of this topic of respiration. You already have taken when I breathe or process of ventilation or breathing has occurred, nearly 21% of atmospheric air is drawn into this alveolus. Now what is the next process then? When air is taken by inspiration, what could be the next process of passing through these layers and transportation of this oxygen and transportation of this carbon dioxide? Let the diagram be therefore supportive. So comes the part to be discussed. How do you transport oxygen and how do you transport the carbon dioxide? So once after passing through these layers, now what are the factors responsible for binding of oxygen with hemoglobin of RBCs? When oxygen passes through these layers and enter this RBC, what factors are responsible for binding of this oxygen with hemoglobin of the RBCs? Right, Allah? In this RBC, I find enormous number of hemoglobin molecule which is made up of an iron atom. So these are the following factors which could control oxygen binding with hemoglobin, that is partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, temperature is a factor affecting this binding process. Next, H plus concentration is also responsible for this. Last, other factors include 2,3 biphosphoglyceric acid or glyceraldehyde, biphosphoglyceric acid. So these are the different factors responsible for binding of O2 with Hb and dissociation of O2 from the Hb and binding of carbon dioxide. So now comes transportation of oxygen and transportation of carbon dioxide. So how does this physiology occurs? Transportation of oxygen, 97% of oxygen is carried inside this RBCs from your hemoglobin, and remaining 3% of the oxygen is carried within this, what you call, surrounding the RBC. I have a plasma of the blood, in the plasma of the blood. So this is studied by a diagram called as Bohr's effect. What makes binding and what makes dissociation? Very essential part. Percentage saturation of hemoglobin. Here, partial pressure of oxygen in terms of millimeter of mercury. Partial pressure of oxygen in terms of millimeters of mercury, percentage saturation of hemoglobin. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, around 100. Same, if I start with 10, I will go with the unit called as 100 millimeters of mercury, 100% saturation. So transportation of oxygen will begin like this. At the level of alveolus, just before alveolus was written, how did oxygen bind to this RBC? In that case, there should be following conditions. At the level of alveolus, there should be high PO2, partial pressure of oxygen. There should be low PCO2. There should be low temperature, and there should be low, what you call, H plus concentrations. This makes oxygen to bind with hemoglobin and make a HbO2 called as oxyhemoglobin. 97% of oxygen is carried in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin under these conditions, when there is high PO2, low PCO2, low temperature, less H plus concentration, we are going to make a oxyhemoglobin. So that time, a graph which is called as a sigmoid graph which is available, you will shift to the left. The graph takes left shift. Binding causes left shift. Next, Disassociation. What causes disassociation of hemoglobin to release oxygen from hemoglobin? Oxyhemoglobin to release oxygen from hemoglobin. Now reverse the case. What is to be done means at the level of tissues. Correct? At the level of tissues, there is a high P CO2. Correct? There is low PO2. High P CO2, low PO2. There is a high temperature. There is high H plus concentration, and there is low PCO2. This causes oxyhemoglobin to dissociate oxygen and allow binding for carbon dioxide. So that time the graph takes right shift. Dissociation takes right shift. Association with oxygen takes left shift. So we get a sigmoid curve, and this is called as Bohr's effect. And this is declared as Bohr's effect. So next, very essential, how does carbon dioxide gets transported? Carbon dioxide gets transported in three forms. Around 20 to 25% is transported in the form of carboxyhemoglobin. 70% is transported in the form of bicarbonates. And last, 7% is transported in the form of dissolved plasma. So quick enough, carboxyhemoglobin, carbaminohemoglobin, how could it be occurring? Carbamine. Okay. So carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin, hemoglobin's amino group, to make HbCO2. Correct? So carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin to make HbCO2. So that is carbaminohemoglobin, which is 20 to 25%. Later, reversible reactions will occur. Again, when there is low CO2 and high O2, that time HP will give out CO2. So same process which was said in the previous. When O2 is more, CO2 should be less. When CO2 is more, O2 should be less. And carbon dioxide is produced continuously by your cells as a catabolic process. Very essential, bicarbonates. In case of bicarbonates, carbon dioxide combines with water to become carbonic acid, H2CO3. Very essential. This occurs in the RBCs. The previous process is also has occurred in RBC, but here an enzyme is very much in the RBC called as carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase is responsible for formation of this bicarbonate ions, which is further going to dissociate into H++ and HCO3-, where this process of carbon dioxide combining with water has occurred at the level of tissues. In the tissues, there is more CO2. They will combine with H2O to become carbonic acid. Immediately carbonic acid dissociates into H++, HCO3-, means CO2 is trapped in the form of carbonic acid. When you go to the alveolus, when the carbonate goes to their alveolus, reversible reaction, HCO3 binds with H+, again carbonic acid is formed. From the carbonic acid, CO2 is released out from your alveolus. Reversible reaction. For this also, carbonic anhydrase is also responsible, where reversible reaction occurs at the level of alveolus. And remaining 7% in the form of plasma. That is CO2 combines with H2O to become a carbonic acid. So 7% goes in form of carbonic acid. So last 4 diseases major to be briefly written down. Which are the diseases that are going to affect your respiratory system? Those 4 would be like this. The terminologies are chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. They include asthma. They include bronchitis. They include emphysema. And they include pneumonia also. Long-standing chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, asthma, wheezing sound, because of inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Bronchitis, inflammation of your bronchus occurs, discharge of the mucus will be tightened, difficulty in breathing. Emphysema is a concern to damage of alveolus walls because of something called cigarette smoke. Last is pneumonia, bacterial disease caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae. And last, occupational lung disease, which is called as fibrosis of lung. So wherever we work in such an environment, like coal industry, silica industry, cotton industries, those dust would enter our lung and cause proliferation and hardening of the tissues. So we call such conditions as occupational lung diseases. And such cases like stone grinding or floor mill working or mines, it is essential for the persons to cover up with your masks to retain your respiratory system. So this was very brief essential part to exam point of view regarding respiratory